She sat frozen, the letter shaking in her hands. It was Diana's handwriting, unchanged after all these years. Line by line, the words hit like daggers. And then came the sentence that shattered her. She doesn't just want Charles. She wants the crown. Camilla broke down in tears. The whispers, the suspicion, the rumors, now confirmed by Diana herself. Not from tabloids, not from rivals, but from the woman she was never able to silence. The room fell silent. No titles, no power. Just the raw truth between two women. One living, one gone. And now the world finally knows what Diana always feared. The letter unearthed. It was a simple drawer in Kensington Palace, sealed, untouched, and forgotten. For nearly 3 decades, no one knew what lay inside. But during a quiet renovation, royal archivists opened it. What they found left them frozen. A letter, yellowed with age, signed by Diana, Princess of Wales. And the date? Just weeks before her fatal crash in Paris. Experts didn't hesitate. Handwriting analysts confirmed it was Diana's. No question. One specialist said, "This isn't a replica. This is the real thing." But it wasn't just the signature that stunned them. It was the opening line. Diana had written, "They think the world won't believe me, but I've seen what she's done." She didn't name names at first, but that single line, it hit like thunder. The room went quiet. Everyone knew who she meant. And just like that, the rumors Diana once whispered had a voice again. A real one, in her own handwriting. What followed in the letter reignited a story many thought had ended. Fear, betrayal, secrets. It wasn't just a private message, it was a confession. And now, with the paper finally unsealed, that voice was about to shake the palace from the inside out. The letter didn't stay locked away. It moved quickly, up the chain, into secure hands. And when its contents were fully read, the true shock came not from the opening line, but from who Diana was warning the world about. Because inside that letter, she made it very clear who she was. And Diana didn't hold back. Diana's accusation. Diana's tone wasn't polite. It wasn't vague. It was raw, direct, painful, and yes, personal. She named Camilla outright. She knew exactly what she was doing, Diana wrote. She spun him like silk. Every move was to erase me. It wasn't gossip. It was grief poured out in ink. Diana accused Camilla of manipulation, emotional cruelty, and undermining her place in the royal family. She didn't sound angry. She sounded tired of pretending. "I'm a ghost watching a throne," she wrote, "and she's the one placing the crown." These weren't just accusations. They were reflections from someone who felt erased before her time. What stunned readers most was how clearly Diana connected past palace drama with a larger fear. She described feeling persecuted, saying, "I was never crazy. I was never unstable. I was cornered." That sentence alone silenced any doubt. For years, Diana's emotional state had been debated. Now, she had spoken for herself. And just like that, all the whispers about Camilla, every headline, every speculation, suddenly had context. Diana had put it in writing. The woman she once saw as a threat had become her final warning. A warning now echoing across generations. The letter couldn't be ignored. So, the royal family did what they always do when silence won't hold. They gathered. A quiet, private reading was held. Senior royals only. No press, no advisors. And in that dimly lit room, Camilla heard the words Diana left behind, and what followed would leave her and the palace completely shaken. The private reading. It wasn't a press event. It wasn't formal, but it was one of the most important royal moments in recent memory. A select group of senior royals gathered inside Clarence House for a private reading of Diana's unearthed letter. The mood was tense. No one spoke loudly. No one smiled. It felt like a courtroom, not a family room. Camilla sat to the side, quietly listening as each sentence was read aloud. When her name came up, when Diana's words turned sharp, everything changed. One witness said, "She went pale, like the blood left her face." Another noted her hands trembled. When it was over, she couldn't even stand. She wept, openly. No dramatic exit, no speeches, just quiet tears. A royal aide whispered, "It wasn't staged. That was real." She wasn't ready for that letter. Some tried to comfort her, others looked away. But the message was clear. Diana's words had hit their target. The aides scattered almost immediately after. Damage control wasn't just about public perception. It was now internal. The room had felt a power shift. The silence spoke volumes. Diana may have been gone for decades, but in that moment, she had the final word. And the crown, it seemed, had just been knocked off balance. And while the walls of Clarence House tried to hold in the fallout, the outside world was already catching on. The press had caught wind of Camilla's emotional breakdown, and what they did next would blast Diana's words onto front pages around the globe and push Camilla into the spotlight in a way she never wanted. Camilla's tears exposed. It didn't take long. Within 24 hours of the private letter reading, the press caught wind of what had happened inside Clarence House. "Camilla crumbles," screamed one headline. Others were even sharper. "Diana's words break the crown." The private tears were no longer private. Cameras caught Camilla leaving in a dark car, face hidden, head down. Insiders described her as visibly shaken, and for a woman often portrayed as composed and unfazed, the image was stunning. She wasn't attending events. She wasn't offering statements. She had disappeared from public life, and that silence only fueled the flames. To some, Camilla looked vulnerable, fragile, even human. But to others, this wasn't about empathy. It was about consequences. Critics took to social media saying, "She played the long game," but Diana's truth finally caught up. Some called her emotional collapse strategic, even rehearsed. But the tears? They were real. And now, they were public. Public sympathy was split down the middle. Was this the unraveling of a woman unfairly vilified? Or the final chapter of a truth too long buried? One headline summed it up best. "Camilla weeps, and the world watches." For the first time in years, her influence didn't seem royal. It seemed broken. But while Camilla became the headline, something even bigger was brewing. Because the letter wasn't just emotional. It was detailed, specific. And when the full contents started surfacing across media platforms, what had once been rumor turned into confirmation. Diana's fears were now facts. And the palace couldn't spin its way out this time. Rumors confirmed. For decades, whispers echoed through tabloids and royal circles. Diana felt isolated. Camilla had too much influence. Power was shifting behind the scenes. But now, the letter gave those whispers a name, a date, a voice. Suddenly, they weren't whispers anymore. They were evidence. In one chilling section, Diana wrote, "She doesn't just want Charles, she wants the crown." That line alone sparked a media frenzy. Experts pointed to moments over the years where Camilla's presence had raised eyebrows. Charity placements, press access, scheduling dominance, it all suddenly made sense. Diana also hinted she feared for her safety, not with direct accusations, but strong suggestions. "I feel watched, not by strangers, but by those who should protect me." It painted a picture of a woman who no longer trusted the system meant to shelter her. And whoop, the world was listening. Palace officials had no choice but to acknowledge the letter's authenticity, but avoided questions about its implications. That silence was deafening. One royal historian commented, "Diana always said we'd understand one day. I think that day just came." The public didn't need analysis. The words spoke for themselves. The moment the public saw those words in print, everything changed. Newspapers, online headlines, television specials. It exploded. And suddenly, this wasn't just a royal family issue, it became a global conversation. Diana's voice was back, and the people were listening louder than ever. Public reaction and media frenzy. The letter hit the public like lightning. Every outlet from London to New York led with the same story. Diana's voice returns. Social media lit up in seconds. Hashtags like #TeamDiana and #SheToldUs soared. People didn't just read the letter. They felt it. And they responded with emotion, outrage, and questions. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all flooded with clips, theories, quotes. Young people who weren't even alive when Diana died suddenly became her fiercest defenders. One viral post said, "She tried to warn us. Now she's warning again." From beyond. Within hours, over 50 million impressions circled the globe. News anchors debated the letter's purpose. Was it meant to expose, or just to record her truth? Royal commentators clashed live on air. But what no one could deny was the public's shift. Overnight, trust in the monarchy dipped. A poll revealed 63% of people believed Diana's letter changed their view of the royal family. And now, the pressure was unbearable. The palace couldn't hide behind tradition or protocol. Every minute they stayed silent, public anger grew. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham. Candlelight vigils were held at Kensington. For the first time in years, the people weren't just interested in the royals, they were demanding answers from them. And inside the palace, those demands weren't taken lightly. King Charles knew the story was no longer just emotional, it was explosive. And so he did what few monarchs ever do. He called an emergency session, not in public, but in secret. Because now, it wasn't about mourning. It was about saving the monarchy from the inside out. Palace emergencies and crisis teams. The gates of Buckingham stayed shut, but inside, the alarms were blaring. King Charles wasted no time. He summoned his top legal advisors, PR directors, and senior aides for a full-blown crisis meeting. The message was clear. This isn't just bad press. This is a direct hit on the monarchy's foundation. The first move? Secure the archives. Staff were ordered to protect all letters, files, and correspondence related to Diana. Special security was placed around sensitive locations, including the Kensington Archive Room where the letter was found. One insider revealed, "They're treating it like a national security breach." At the same time, palace PR teams were drafted into non-stop damage control. Some staff were pulled from vacation, others told to cancel engagements. Every word said by a royal now had to be reviewed. Twice. One wrong phrase, and it'll become tomorrow's headline, warned a senior official. Meanwhile, aides were told to stay quiet. Very quiet. Staff phones were monitored. Briefings were closed. Every hallway conversation was hushed. "This is a deep cut to the monarchy's image," one royal aide admitted. "And deep cuts bleed fast." What was once private had become public. Now the mission was survival. But even with the damage teams in motion, one conversation couldn't be scripted. It had to happen face to face. Quiet. Direct. Emotional. King Charles called for a private audience with the one person who knew this pain better than anyone, and whose future now hung by a thread. That person was Camilla. Charles confronts Camilla. The meeting was held inside Clarence's house. No aides, no cameras. Just King Charles and Camilla. It wasn't a political move. It was personal. The atmosphere was heavy. This wasn't the man she married. This was a man torn between past love and present loyalty. And the silence between them said more than words ever could. Witnesses didn't hear what was said, but they saw what happened after. Camilla emerged visibly shaken, again, her eyes red, her hands shaking. "She looked like she'd been through something devastating," said one guard stationed nearby. Another added, "It wasn't just emotional. It was transformative." Charles, meanwhile, was pale. Not from anger, but from grief. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a reckoning. The man who once chose Camilla over everything was now staring down the cost of that choice. Diana's voice had returned, and it was demanding answers. No public statement followed. Just silence. The palace claimed it was private family time. But insiders knew the truth. This was the royal family's most intense emotional moment in years. And in that room, the future of Camilla's role wasn't just discussed. It was decided. And while Charles and Camilla faced their own storm, two powerful figures within the royal family had already made up their minds. They weren't just watching. They were planning. Because for Anne and William, this wasn't just about the crown. It was about Diana. And their quiet moves would soon shake the monarchy from the inside. Anne and William Way. Princess Anne didn't go to the press. She didn't write a speech. But she made her position clear in a meeting with senior palace staff. "We owe Diana dignity, and that means action, not silence." Her tone was calm, but firm, and in that one line, the direction of the crown began to shift. At the same time, Prince William quietly met with his father. It wasn't a confrontation. It was counsel, a gentle private moment between son and father. But insiders say William made his view clear. This cannot be swept away. We must face it. For William, this was personal. Diana wasn't just history. She was his mother. Neither Anne nor William offered public support to Camilla. Their silence spoke louder than any statement. Royal insiders began to notice a shift in proximity. Camilla was no longer included in internal calls. Her name wasn't on the upcoming engagement rosters. The family was repositioning, quietly, but unmistakably. Even Camilla's closest allies, once vocal defenders, began to distance themselves. A former aide noted, "She's not being attacked, she's being left behind." In a family where unity is everything, isolation can be its own form of punishment. And for Camilla, that silence was now deafening. And while Anne and William stepped forward, Camilla began to step back, not through scandal, but through absence. Her name was still there, technically, But her presence? Gone. Titles, appearances, and roles slowly started to move. And as each day passed, it became clearer. Camilla wasn't being removed. She was being replaced. Camilla's role reassigned. There was no official statement, no royal decree. But behind the palace walls, the message was unmistakable. Camilla's role was changing. Quietly. Permanently. It began with calendar adjustments. Charity visits she was meant to attend were suddenly reassigned. One went to Princess Anne, another to Kate Middleton. Camilla's name slowly vanished from the palace schedule. One royal press secretary admitted it wasn't announced, but it was deliberate. Her patronages, dozens of them, were quietly handed over. Organizations began receiving new correspondence signed by Anne or William. Some were told Camilla was stepping back for rest. Others weren't told anything at all. But they knew what it meant. Inside the palace, staff were instructed to update official documentation. Invitations for upcoming events removed her title. Social media accounts stopped tagging her in posts. Her photo placement in royal press kits moved down the order. In public relations terms, she was being phased out without a word. What made it more striking was who filled the gap. Anne and William didn't just step in, they took over. Their appearances increased. Their speeches became more pointed. It was subtle, but clear. The palace was moving forward, and it was doing so without Camilla in the frame. And while Camilla faded from royal duties, the monarchy began rewriting its story. Not around her, but around someone else. Someone whose voice had returned in a letter. Diana. And now, for the first time in decades, her legacy was no longer behind glass. It was leading the institution's future. Legacy and institutional shift. The palace didn't say her name aloud, but their actions made it clear. Diana's memory was now shaping their every move. A memorial garden at Kensington Palace received renewed funding. Her speeches were quoted in official materials. One internal royal memo even stated, "Let her legacy guide our modern image." Royal messaging shifted overnight. No more vague calls for unity. Now it was about service, honesty, and memory. The very values Diana had championed, and had often been punished for, were now the monarchy's rallying cry. It's ironic, one royal historian noted, the woman they feared has become their blueprint. Commentators called it the Diana Doctrine. Public service, emotional openness, family over formality. Even palace communications changed. Instagram posts grew warmer. Quotes from Diana appeared next to photos of William and Kate. It was a total branding overhaul based on a woman who never got the throne but won the people. Meanwhile, Camilla's vision, one of quiet tradition and calculated appearances, faded out. What once held influence now seemed outdated. The monarchy wasn't just shifting, it was rebuilding. Around a woman who never stopped speaking, even after death. But while the crown leaned into Diana's legacy, the woman at the center of the storm was still silent. Until now. Camilla finally broke her silence, but it wasn't a press conference or tearful apology. It was brief, tense, and left more questions than answers. Camilla's response. After weeks of silence, Camilla released a short statement through her office. No interviews, no video, just 10 words. I remain devoted to service and to the king. It was formal, cold, and intentionally distant from the emotional chaos surrounding Diana's letter. She skipped 3 major royal events following the statement. One was a high-profile charity gala. Another, a remembrance service Diana once attended. Her absence was noted, loudly. Tabloids ran the headline, "The Queen Consort Who Didn't Show," and social media lit up with criticism. She's not stepping aside. She's disappearing. Supporters defended her, saying she was taking time to heal. Some described her as a private woman facing public cruelty. But even her defenders struggled to rally the public. The love wasn't loud. It was muted, measured, and temporary. Critics, however, were not quiet. They labeled her shamefully diminished and historically exposed. One royal reporter wrote, "Camilla built a career on silence. Now it's that same silence that's undoing her." The world didn't just want words. They wanted change. And Camilla's brief note felt like too little, too late. Now, with roles shifting and time ticking, all eyes turned toward the monarchy's next chapter. In just 18 months, a new coronation loomed. But who would stand at the king's side? And more importantly, what legacy would that ceremony represent? One of quiet loyalty or a long overdue truth? The long-term fallout. The countdown had begun, 18 months until the official coronation ceremony. And for the first time, no one knew who'd be standing beside King Charles. Camilla's future role was no longer confirmed. One royal advisor confessed, "We are entering uncharted territory. She may be queen in title, but that title doesn't hold the same weight anymore." Behind closed doors, senior royals debated next steps. Some called for a reduced role for Camilla, more private, less public. Others suggested a quiet retirement after the coronation. Nothing was official, but everything was on the table. The one name that remained untouchable? Diana's. Meanwhile, the Commonwealth paid close attention. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, all reportedly watching the monarchy's response. Several political leaders hinted at discussions about the monarchy's relevance. One Canadian MP put it bluntly, "If they can't manage their past, how can they lead our future?" Inside the UK, the public remained divided. Older generations clung to tradition. Younger ones demanded transformation. The question now wasn't whether the monarchy would change, but how much it would need to in order to survive. As one journalist summed up, "This is no longer about royalty. It's about legacy." The crown wasn't just fragile, it was on the edge. One decision could heal a nation. Another could unravel it. And the one woman who was never meant to wear the crown may have just become its greatest force. Camilla's tears weren't just grief. They were the unraveling of a legacy carefully built over decades. Diana's lost letter didn't just expose secrets, it rewrote history. The woman once dismissed as emotional had become the voice that changed the monarchy's course forever. Public trust crumbled. Camilla's influence faded. And for the first time, the crown didn't feel like a symbol of power, it felt like a burden. Behind closed doors, the palace is in crisis mode. Strategies are redrawn, roles are reassigned. And with a coronation looming, the biggest question remains, will Camilla return to stand beside the king, or fade quietly into the background? Meanwhile, Diana's presence grows stronger. Her causes revived, her memory honored. Her truth, once ignored, now shapes the future of the monarchy. The people have chosen sides. The silence has been shattered. And the crown, once thought untouchable, now trembles under the weight of one woman's final words. This isn't just royal drama. It's a reckoning. One Diana began decades ago, and one that's only now finding its voice. The monarchy will survive. but it will never be the same.